UCL this week, we're back with the return of the competition, and there was perhaps a surprise or two. So let's not waste any time and look at what happened and talk about how we all feel following these matches. What effect did these matches have on us? Let's dig deeper. I'm your host, professional psychiatrist. So Dortmund overcame PSG at Signal Iduna Park thanks to a brace from who else but my son, Erling Haaland, with Neymar scoring what could be a crucial away goal for PSG. So, Haaland has scored on his Dortmund debut in the Bundesliga, Pokal, and now the Champions League as well. Still, he's clearly regressing. Guy scored a hat-trick on his Champions League debut for Salzburg. But hey, he's still the fastest player to reach 10 Champions League goals in a single campaign in the competition's history as a teen. He's also quite literally fast. Maybe not the fastest player ever, but he clocked in a speed of 60 meters in 6.64 seconds against PSG while Dortmund tried to counter. Just so you know, the world record for this distance is
6.34 seconds.
But anyway, enough of that. What impressed me the most about this Dortmund performance was actually their defense. Yes, Haaland is extremely impressive, and I am still the president of the Erling Haaland Stan Club, so if anyone is finally convinced that this kid is talented, membership is totally free. But also, what I'm saying here is, the Dortmund defense stood much stronger than expected. Now, it would be easy to say that PSG weren't at it in an attacking sense, because they weren't really. If Mbappe and Neymar didn't do anything, nobody else was really providing a threat. But that would be taking away from the defensive work that Dortmund did. I mean, you have the nearly 35 years old Piszczek in there playing a very tidy game. Hummels was good defensively, if not extremely poor passing-wise on a few occasions. Berkey was really up for it and was reading the match well, making decent saves and rushing out to quell attacks. But the number one guy, the key to Dortmund's defensive solidity, in my opinion, was Axel Witsel. Watching the midfield battle between Witsel and Can versus Verratti, that was fun. Verratti was immense for the Parisians, but for me, Witsel's role in covering that Dortmund back line could not be understated. Fantastic from him, as he did a great job in snuffing out that PSG attack. Speaking of PSG's attack and how poor it looked, beyond Mbappe and Neymar, I'll say again, but Dortmund are looking more and more dangerous going forward as this season goes on. This is a Dortmund team that was without Marco Reus, and even so, you had Sancho looking like a threat whenever he had the ball, whether that was taking on defenders himself or drawing them in only to release an overlapping Hakimi down the right. We had Guerrero down the left doing the same thing as Sancho, rushing beyond Hazard and Haaland. They were a pleasure to watch. Now, can they replicate that sort of attacking intent at the Parc des Princes, or will PSG keep them a little more honest and not allow Hakimi and Guerrero to get forward? You would think the latter would be true, but here's a huge thing that will throw a bone to Dortmund. Verratti will be suspended for the second leg. Verratti, who was the savior defensively on so many occasions, and the catalyst of some of PSG's moves going forward, a catalyst to their transition play, recovering the ball and then springing the attack. So it's all to play for. I'm excited for the second leg. Atletico versus Liverpool, a fourth-minute goal for Atletico ultimately gave them the 1-0 win, in which there was a perfect storm that led to Atletico's victory. First, you have Atletico playing perhaps one of their best matches of the entire season, defensively solid, which nothing new there, and they took their chance when they had it. I would say they took their chances when they had it, but they certainly didn't do that for any of their chances that came after their goal. Scoring more than one goal has been a labor for them all season, and it proved to be the case here again, but it was enough for them to get the win and not concede an away goal, which is huge. And then you have Liverpool turning out what was probably their worst performance of the season, barring maybe their match against Napoli from the group stage, but I'd say this one was still worse. I mean, this happens once in a while. Anyone who has played the game themselves or even have just followed it for long enough will know your team can be flying for a while, and you go up against a squad that is seemingly in a tough moment and you think they're there for the taking. You can roll them over, and then your passes are off by a step. Your finishing is off. You can't get around the defenders, and the team that is supposed to be laboring is suddenly providing a roadblock for you at every single avenue. It's frustrating, and that frustration bleeds into your play and your decision making, and you force it, and it all goes downhill. So it was indeed a poor performance from Liverpool, but you can't take anything away from Atletico and Simeone. He set them up perfectly, they got a goal early, plugged up the back line completely, and then when they did get chances, they came extremely close to making it 2 or 3-0 on the night. Had Morata not slipped up, then it's likely it would have been at least 2-0 in this game. I mean, Oblak didn't have to do a single thing all night. I was watching him and I thought, has he really had anything to do besides pass the ball? So I checked, and sure enough, no shots on target. Plus, he didn't even have to punch the ball out for a clearance or make a high claim. Truly a night of rest and relaxation to ensure he's nice and refreshed for the return leg. And he's definitely going to need to be refreshed. As great of a result that was for Atletico Madrid, when you're going up against the current kings of Europe, then you'd better aim for the head. And I do wonder how much those missed opportunities to make it 2 or 3-0 will come back to bite Atletico Madrid when they go to Anfield, the place where Liverpool was able to turn around a 3-0 deficit from the first leg last season. And I will also say this. I read a stat while I was cruising on public transit yesterday that said that Diego Simeone has never lost a European knockout stage tie unless Cristiano Ronaldo was playing for the other team. One, that's crazy and a testament to how good Ronaldo is, but two, it really is a testament to Simeone as well, and the fact that barring one of the best goal scorers in the world ruining things for him, he must certainly be considered one of the better managers as far as setting up his team to win a two-legged cup match currently in European football. But he'll have one of his toughest tests yet at Anfield, a truly magical place on a European night when the Reds need a result. Again, very much looking forward to the second leg of these two as well. Don't you love the Champions League? Aren't we lucky to have this competition? Ethan Ampadu returns to London via RB Leipzig, featuring as a centre-back, and it was his team that was on the front foot immediately, forcing 2 good saves out of Lloris, one of which bounced off of the post and out. I will say, throughout this match, if it hadn't been for Lloris, it could have been a lopsided victory for Leipzig. After calming down from that scare, Spurs got back into the match via a great chance for Bergwijn, but the vet, Gulaschi, tipped it over the bar. We had a game, folks, but it was worrying how easily Leipzig were coasting through the Spurs back line and how frequently they were doing so. And this really was how most of the first half played out, how most of the match played out. Tottenham having moments in which they looked like they're a pass away from hurting Leipzig, but often just couldn't make that final pass, whereas Leipzig looked dangerous, whether they were attacking through Werner, Schick, or Angelino. Angelino and Schick, by the way. How much better did these guys look at their new club? And they just found it way too easy to get through that back line. But it was through a Werner penalty that Leipzig found the breakthrough in the second half. Ben Davies with a dummy tackle on Konrad Laimer. No question of the penalty there. And Werner scored his 26th goal of the season. In my preview, I said I was a little unsure of Klosterman in the Leipzig backline as he hadn't overly impressed me in the past, but he was excellent for them against Spurs in the first leg. As the second half wore on, around the 70-minute mark, Spurs grew in strength, and with the crowd really backing them, they looked as if they could steal an equalizer. The change that Lamela brought when he came on really shifted the tide, him and Ndombele. The energy that Spurs were really in dire need of at that point, but this team is looking exhausted. In the end, they couldn't get the equalizer they had sought, and a big credit to RB Leipzig, who dictated much of the match against the Tottenham side that is really lacking bite in the attack without Son and Kane, and were a little too easy to overrun in the midfield at times. Now comes the big one, the second leg. Nagelsmann and his squad got the better of Mourinho and Spurs, so we'll see if Spurs can pull off another turnaround as they did against Ajax last season. Experience right now is basically one of the few advantages that Spurs have. They're light in the attack, while Leipzig are light in defense, to be fair. So a 2-1 win for Spurs would do it, while Leipzig just need a draw, and they're through. And finally, what match provided the most goals by a long shot? Atalanta versus Valencia, of course. The fact that Atalanta was involved should have been a big clue, as these guys don't particularly care for the 2-1 or the 1-0 victory. They like to competently beat their opposition, and Valencia was the perfect opponent. A Valencia side that hadn't won a match or kept a clean sheet since February 1st, whereas Atalanta were undefeated since then and had scored 6 in 3 matches. And it basically went as you would expect, as the hosts took the lead after 16 minutes as Gomez found Hateboer. The wingback was there where the strikers like to chill. Alejandro Gomez just doing what he does best, racking up assists. On the half-hour mark, Valencia nearly got back into the match if it wasn't for the woodwork. Ferran Torres causing problems down that right-hand side. He is a great player to watch, isn't he? But from seemingly out of nowhere, a ball to the top of the box to Ilicic on his right foot, his much weaker foot, and his form carried him through to shift his body ahead of the defenders and lash it into the top corner. The form of this man, scoring his first in 3 matches, so he's back at it again after taking 2 matches off of scoring. At the hour mark, more goals from Atalanta as Freuler bent a pearl of a strike past Domenech, 3-0 and a feeling of no way back for Valencia. And if there wasn't a feeling of this thing being over then Hans Hateboer's driving run forward and whipped finish into the side netting surely gave this tie a feeling of being completely over. Great flicked through ball from Pasalic, but Hateboer still had a ton to do. Now, a mistake from Palomino to give the ball away to Cheryshev, and, well, the Russian finished well into the bottom corner, out of reach for Golini. 4-1, that gives them a chance, but 4-1 the final from the San Siro. Remember, Atalanta are playing at the San Siro right now because their stadium doesn't meet UEFA specifications. I fully expect Atalanta to see this out. I can't see them blowing a lead like this against Valencia. They score an away goal, which is likely with Atalanta, and that really makes things difficult for Valencia. Valencia should have had a couple of goals as Atalanta were a bit too keen to go forward at times, a bit naive. So they will need to show more restraint away to Valencia, or not. The only plan is plan A. And that's it as far as how these matches made me feel this week. Now, next week, we'll be looking forward to Chelsea hosting Bayern and Napoli at home to face Barcelona on the Tuesday, and then Lyon versus Juventus at Parc Olympique, and then Manchester City away to Real Madrid. With the potential suspension from next season's Champions League, City will really want to make the most of this campaign. I mean, even more than before, especially if they're suspended for 2 seasons. Players that want to win the Champions League are going to want to go elsewhere. So this is the competition they haven't won yet. This is the competition for Manchester City. They're going to be going all in. Anyways, be sure to let me know what you thought of the matches this week. Thanks as always for watching. My name's Adrian. I love ya. Take care.